But today, in the House of Commons, there was a vote in favour of a Lord's amendment to the Public Order Act that seeks to ban any sort of protest within a short perimeter of abortion clinics. It's known as the Buffer Zone Amendment. Naturally, you might think that as a religious Catholic, I broach this subject because I'm of the pro-life persuasion on matters of abortion. But in this instance, you'd be wrong. It's true that I'm someone who takes the teaching of the Catholic Church as absolute and that life begins at conception. If you have a problem with that, you'd better take it up with the Holy Father. But I can assure you that Catholics have thought these matters through for a very long time. The Catholic Church has answers to almost everything, whether it's on euthanasia or eating meat on Fridays. And the Church has spent 2,000 years studying these matters, helped by the great doctors of the Church like St. Thomas Aquinas, whose feast day it happens to be today. But that's not why I opposed this amendment. I defend people's rights to express themselves from all sorts of persuasions, no matter whether I agree with them or not. Freedom of speech is fundamental. This legislation has already taken effect in certain councils around the country, which have their own local versions of this policy, but now it's become national. And just yesterday, as you can see, a woman in Birmingham was arrested for silently praying within 165 yards of an abortion zone. As I see it, if you call yourself pro-choice, then that must extend to the choice of others to pray silently in public places. Well, I'm joined now by the woman in question, who was arrested just yesterday, Mrs. Isabel Braun-Spruce. Isabel, thank you so much. Tell me exactly what happened. You've been arrested repeatedly, and is there a reason that you haven't applied to court to vary the restrictions on you, rather than constantly getting arrested? Some people may say, are you doing this deliberately to get arrested and draw attention and promote the issue?
So just to make it clear, I've been doing the work I've been doing for about 20 years, which is offering help and alternative to women outside abortion centres. And many, many women have accepted that help and been very grateful for it. So at the end of last year, I was silently praying outside the abortion centre and I was arrested there for that. Questioned as to what my thoughts were, what I was praying about. And after I was interrogated, I was released on bail, but I was charged with engaging in an act which was intimidating service users, even though there were no service users actually at that time present. But I was fully acquitted of that last month. So I would naturally assume from that, since I'd been fully acquitted, the prosecution offered no evidence whatsoever, that I was okay to go and do the same thing again, which is what I've been doing for 20 years, praying outside the abortion centre. So yesterday I did go and do that. I prayed out silently in my head outside the abortion centre. I didn't engage with anyone. I had no posters, no leaflets. I wasn't even holding my rosary beads or anything like that. I was just literally silently praying in my head. And 6 officers came with a police van and told me I was engaging in prayer, which is an offence. And they said quite clearly, when I said I don't believe there is an offence, they said it is.
How do they know that you were praying? It's private prayer. They came along, 6 police, you were standing there, and they said, you're praying. Where do they get the 6 police from? Nobody else gets 6 police turning up. If you have a robber steal from your house, you don't get 6 police. So where did they find them? And how did they know you were praying?
Well, firstly, I would say that some locals that I know do share your concerns in as much as they're saying, yes, there's crime in the neighbourhood that doesn't seem to be dealt with. And yet when there's a woman standing there silently praying, we can suddenly get 6 officers to go and arrest her. But they asked me if I was praying. And I told them honestly that, yes, I was silently praying in my head. I didn't feel I needed to hide that. But maybe in view of their response, maybe I should have.
They had to have a suspicion that you were praying, whereas you were praying silently. You were just standing there was all that they could tell, and they arrested you once you'd admitted you'd told the truth and admitted that you were praying and you'd committed a thought crime.
Yeah, as I say, this is work I've been doing for 20 years. So the police may know I've been doing this work for 20 years. I've been helping women, along with many people who support me in that work. I contact the police every time we start doing this kind of work. Whenever we go outside the abortion centre, the police know I go there. So I haven't made a secret of that. And the police may well know that that's why they know my face, because they know I do that work. And I don't feel I should need to hide it. I've had loads of women supporting me, loads of the women that we have previously supported coming forward to say to me, thank you for what you're doing. Because without that help, they would possibly have had an abortion which they didn't really want and felt that wasn't really their choice.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Isabel, and thank you for waiving your privacy as well so that you could speak today. But I've also got with me in the studio part of Isabel's representation from the legal advocacy group, Lois McClatchy. Lois, thank you so much for coming in. Do you know of any previous thought crime in this country?
This is the first time, today in Parliament actually marks the first time that a thought crime has been introduced into UK legislation in modern British history. This is the UK in 2023, not 1984, you might think. But unfortunately, we have a situation now in the case, as we've seen with Isabel, and as we'll be seeing more in the coming months and years due to new legislation passed today. We have a situation where one can now be criminalised and faced charges simply for the thoughts they have in their own mind.
And is this, in its origin, just trying to protect women from harassment who are, whether we like it or not, getting a perfectly legal service, and they should be able to go out about their daily business free from harassment?
Yes, let me make this absolutely clear. I, as a woman in my 20s, absolutely stand against harassment of any women anywhere, at any time, at least most of all at a time of emotional distress. And that's not what we're defending here. What buffer zones do is they criminalise that which is already criminal. It's already criminal to harass a woman like that. But they go much, much further, and this is the dangerous point. They criminalise thought and also consensual conversations between two adults. Consensual conversations that would offer information, offer access to services. We know from BBC polling that almost 1 in 5 women who have abortions do so against their will. So there is, or there are many people who would like to know about other options before they commit to an abortion. Would it be financial support? Would it be emotional support? Would it be another service that would help them? So to take away those conversations, those options, that removes choices from women. It's a no-choice move, not a pro-choice move.
But wouldn't it be possible to be more than 165 yards away from the abortion clinic and to do it just as well? And it's the proximity to the clinic that is the problem that the campaigners for abortion have been putting forward.
Well, we know from the testimonies of women who have benefited from offers of help just at the point when they needed it, that they didn't know where to look for these services and were able to have access at that point of need, right at the point that they were considering their future prospects. So we know from their point of view this is important, but also is taking a step back. It isn't right for the government to censor an area of public space, public streets, from thoughts that they simply don't like, they disagree with. If we roll that logic out and take it away from the abortion issue, which can be a little bit distracting in this conversation, because this is a free speech question, a freedom of expression question, a freedom of thought question. If we take that away from abortion and say, what if the government was trying to ban another source of information or another conversation or people who think about another topic? It's pro-life views today that are being censored. But now that we have the precedent that certain conversations can be banned on certain public streets, who knows where that could lead in the future?
And do you think people like Isabel are going to be arrested in greater numbers? And if they're admitting to praying, aren't they inviting arrest? Wouldn't it be easier for them just to say to the police they're not going to answer their question, because then if they're just standing there, they're not breaking the law?
Good policy should never be based on the fact that we should be lying to the police about our thoughts. And in the UK, which is a democracy, a Western democracy, it's frankly shocking that people think that we can criminalise the thoughts within the privacy of our own minds. In Isabel's case, when she went to court to face criminal charges, the prosecution were able to offer no evidence because there was no evidence, because how can you prove a silent thought? But nevertheless, she had that ordeal of going to court, and here she is again having to face an arrest again. So this new law will unjustly have more innocent people have to go through this ordeal simply because of their thoughts, their silent beliefs, or their willingness to help women at a time of crisis.
Well, the rosary used to be illegal in the Elizabethan times when the Catholics were persecuted, and I was certainly noted that Isabel said she didn't take her rosary because she didn't want to be particularly confrontational. But thank you very much, Lois. Thank you so much for coming on. A spokesman from the West Midlands Police said, "We arrested a 45-year-old woman on suspicion of breaching a public space protection order, PSPO, yesterday, following complaints from members of the public. The woman was advised to leave the area and refused before being issued with a fixed penalty notice. When she refused to leave again, she was arrested. She has now been bailed while statements are taken from residents and people working in the area." Still ahead, we'll be dragging my mischievous panel back into the studio for a net zero debate. I'll be praying silently that you'll join me after the break.